If you want to learn LangChain, there are a lot of high quality courses available on YouTube, at Udemy, and also other websites. However, I think there are some challenges with most of those courses. They typically start with configuring IDE, installing dependencies. These are important. However, for the beginner, sometimes those things are a little overwhelming. It takes them quite a bit of time to get done with their setup, and by the time they're done, they kind of lose interest. However, they came to this tutorial for learning LangChain, right? So sometimes, those setups kind of derail the learners. The second point is typically, the instructors, they ask the learners to fork a GitHub repo and copy paste code line by line. This is also not, this is one way of learning LangChain, but it has some drawbacks as well. But most importantly, those materials become somewhat outdated when LangChain releases new updates. So I came up with a little bit different approach for this course. We'll jump directly straight into the framework. We'll just go to Google Drive. You just need a Gmail account, and we'll just open a notebook, Google Colab, and just start coding. No ID setup or anything. If you're able to learn LangChain, those things I'm pretty sure will be super easy for you to how to set up VS Code and all those things, right? I don't want that part to become a blocker for your LangChain learning. Then another point about this course is that I'll teach you how to navigate LangChain's official resources. And if you can successfully do that, then even if there are changes in the future, you don't have to rely on a new tutorial to learn those changes. You can directly learn from the source. However, there are some challenges with the official documents. And this is not only for LangChain. I would say for most frameworks or libraries, if you want to learn from official documentation, especially if you are a beginner, it's not really easy. Those documentations are typically not written for the absolute beginners. So the dense technical language used in those official documentation needs some translation. They need to be translated into plain English for the beginners. And very often I find that the sample codes given in those documentation, they don't really work as is. They need some tweaking. And that's exactly what we are going to do in this course. So our approach in practice will be like this. For the setup, we're not going to use VS Code or some other IDE like that. We'll just use Google Colab to keep it simple. I'll try my best to use Gemini models because they have a free tier. You don't have to pay anything. Sometimes LangChain, their official documentation gives example with Anthropic or OpenAI. I'll not use that. This will be one of those tweaks where instead of using the example LLM mentioned in the code snippet, I'll just use Gemini so that you can save some money. Our focus will be a solid understanding of the core LangChain concepts. Coding wise, of course, it will be a coding tutorial. However, the main focus will be to understand the essential parts of LangChain. And as mentioned, we'll be using official LangChain documentation and references. I can just give you a sneak peek of that. So this is LangChain docs. On the left-hand side, you can see there are a lot of components of LangChain framework. We'll go one by one to give you a clear understanding of the entire framework. And we'll be also using, one second here. If we go to reference, they also have a reference page. So we'll be using those two resources, official resources from LangChain. So enough talking, let's get started. We are on the LangChain website here. In this website, if you click products, then you can see on the left side, Langsmith platform, and on the right side, open source frameworks. So we can see here, LangChain has three frameworks to build agents: deep agents, LangChain, and LangGraph. As you know by now, in this particular tutorial, we'll be focusing on LangChain. So let's click on LangChain. Here, we can say start building and read the docs. So as we have discussed in this tutorial, we will be learning LangChain using their official documentation, LangChain's official documentation. So let's click here. And this is our main resource for this tutorial. On the left hand side, you can see various LangChain components. We'll treat this as our table of contents for this tutorial. Along with this, LangChain docs will be also using their reference pages. So here, if we click on reference, we can see they have dedicated reference sites for each of their frameworks. So in our case, we'll click LangChain. And once we are on LangChain reference webpage, if we click on overview, we can see there is a list of packages that LangChain has. Maybe you are already a little confused because I have been using the word LangChain quite frequently, but I believe this diagram will help you to make sense of this. So at the top of the hierarchy, we have this LangChain agent framework, right? So there are three of them, as we discussed from their website: Deep Agents, LangChain, LangGraph. To make it super clear, again, as we have seen earlier, under products, they have these open source frameworks, and there are three of them: Deep Agents, LangChain, LangGraph. You can create agents using any of them, right? So they have three frameworks for agent creation. So under framework here in this box, we have three frameworks: Deep Agents, LangChain, and LangGraph. Now, this particular framework, LangChain, has a list of packages, right? And that's what we have seen here. So once we are on LangChain reference page, we can see there are 6 packages, right? LangChain, LangChain Core, LangChain Text Splitters, and so on. In this tutorial, we'll be mostly using this LangChain package, but we might have to touch a little bit on others as well. But for now, this is kind of our focus. So let's go back to our illustration here. So we discussed we are dealing with LangChain framework here. Under this, there are 6 packages. And then these packages have modules, right? So LangChain package, let's go back to the reference page again. Here, LangChain package. Let's click on this one. And then once we are here, we can see this LangChain package has 28 modules. LangChain, messages, embeddings, base, chat models, agents, and so on, right? We'll be focusing mostly on agents module here. And if you click on this one, then you can see this agents modules have a number of classes, functions, and types, right? So going back here, let's start from the top again. At the very top, there is this LangChain ecosystem. Under this one, it has 3 frameworks. We pick LangChain. LangChain has 6 packages, right? And one of them is LangChain package. LangChain, I know it's kind of repetitive and might be a little confusing, but you'll get used to it. The LangChain package has a number of modules. One of them is agents, and this agents has functions, classes, types, right? I hope it makes sense now. And if you can understand like this illustration, it should really help you, when we get hands-on. Speaking of other tutorials, I think sometimes they just jump on the coding directly and we don't really understand, the big picture. So I hope this one gives you a good enough big picture for the LangChain ecosystem. We are gonna start our hands-on coding from this page. So we are on LangChain docs. We selected LangChain, selected Python, and now here we are on this overview section. So in this LangChain overview section, there is some description and then there is a code block. We'll jump directly on the code block. So this code block creates an agent. Here is installing LangChain and LangChain Anthropic packages. We are going to skip this LangChain Anthropic package. Instead, we'll use Gemini API. The reason is Anthropic API is not free. However, Google Gemini API has a free tier, so we'll use Gemini API and save some money. So to replicate this, we'll go to Google Drive. I logged into my Google Drive, and then I created a folder called LangChain. And here I'm gonna click on New, go to More, and click on Google Colab. We can name this notebook as this one, Overview. And come back here. So let's copy the first line from this code snippet and put it on our Colab notebook. And since this is a terminal command, we have to add an exclamation mark. Otherwise, the notebook will treat this as Python code and return error because this is not Python code, obviously. So pip install LangChain and then LangChain underscore google.genai. This is the official package name to use Gemini APIs. Before running this cell, we have to import the API key. And there's a very nice way to have API key in Google Colab. We can simply click on this secrets option. I already have one API key, but I can delete and create a new one to show you how to do that. Before adding a new secret, we have to create a secret API key, right? So we can simply go to Google AI Studio, aistudio.google.com. From there, we can click on Get API Key, click on Create API Key. We have to give the key a name. I'm going to change it a little bit, Gemini underscore API underscore key. And then we have to have a project for the key. We don't have one, so let's create one on the fly. Let's keep the default name as is and create the project. Once the project is created, we should be able to create the key, and then we have to copy the key name from here and put it on our Colab. Now we can click on add new secret. We have one. Put the name, copy the value here. We can simply click on this, copy API key, and put it here. We also have to enable the notebook access using this toggle. Done. Now they're saying access your secret keys in Python via this code. So we'll just copy this and put it here. Here the user data.get secret name. Here the secret name is Gemini API key, right? So let's keep this one and put it here. With that, we should be done with secrets. We can close it here. And we can assign this to another variable here, Gemini underscore API underscore key. One last thing is to import OS module. This is a default module, comes with standard Python library. And one more thing is os.environment. Okay, well, we have this auto suggestion and it looks correct. So we'll accept it by pressing tab. And with that, we should have our Gemini API key available in this notebook. So we can click the play button. And here, to keep it a little cleaner, we can use a magic command called capture. If we don't have it and run this command, I mean, everything will be fine, but there'll be a lot of outputs on the screen, which will make it a little cluttered. So we are just preventing that. So now you can click this one. And with that, our setup should be ready and we should be able to, copy the rest of the code snippet. By the way, if you forgot how to go to this page, you can, maybe I should have mentioned it earlier, you can go to langchain.com website, click on products, select LangChain, and then click on read the docs and you'll end up here. Let's keep it on the side, and here let's keep this one. Okay. The next thing here is this line. So let's copy it from here and put it here. So let's try to understand this. Here is saying from LangChain.agents, which is a module, import create agent function. So if you can recall from this illustration that we discussed earlier, this LangChain framework has the package LangChain. So when we ran this one, install LangChain, it installed this package. So here you can see we're installing this. And then once we installed, we have this module agents. So from LangChain.agents, we are importing create function, create agent function, right? These are functions, create agent, here create agent, right? So I hope it makes sense now, right? We installed the package and then we got access to the module and then we are importing create agent. Okay, so next they are defining a function, but we are going to do something a little different here. Before putting any tool in the agent, we'll create a tool with, we'll create an agent without a tool, right? So this is the code for creating an agent. Let's copy this. And so this is the create agent function. It has few parameters here. The first one is model. We are not going to use Claude Sonnet. Instead, we are going to use Gemini. So let's get the Gemini model name. Maybe we can get it from here, models. And then if we go to Google Gemini, there's one example which you can simply copy and put here. We are going to keep the tools list empty for now. The system prompt, think of it as the agent's job description. It is a set of background instructions we give the model so it knows exactly who it is. For now, we'll keep it super simple, just saying you are a helpful assistant, right? And we'll call this a chat agent because you can only chat. Maybe I should explain this a bit in more detail. So here on the LangChain page, you can see this if you go to langchain.com/langchain, this illustration. Here we can see the request here at the top. We are sending sending a request or a user prompt to the model, and then if the model has access to the tools, it asks one of the tools or tools to take some actions, and those tools can return observations to the model, and based on these observations, model can generate a result or output, right? In this particular case, we are not giving this model access to any tools, right? So everything is happening on the right side of the things, right? We are sending a request and model is processing it without using tools, right? So let's see how it works. Let's go back to our overview page here again. Now we can run this agent using this invoke method. So let's copy from here. We changed the name of the agent from agent to chat_agent. So let's change it here. This here, the dictionary might look a bit confusing, but for now, all you have to know is that we are providing our query or prompt under this role user content. So under content, we are providing the value here, and this value is our prompt. The prompt is, what is the weather in SF, right? Let's run it and see what response we get from LLM. Chat agent is not defined. Oh, sorry, we forgot to run these cells, so let's run them. taking some time. And now after importing, we can run this function. And then let's run this one. Okay. So here our prompt was, human message was, what is the weather in SF? And the AI response or LLM response was this one. I'm sorry, but I need you to be more specific, and so on, right? So again, going back here, we send a request to the model, in this particular case, Gemini 2.5 flashlight, and then it generated a result. Now we are going to create our second agent, and this time we'll give it access to tools, right? So before we define the agent, let's copy this function. So tools basically means functions, right? So here, once we have this function defined, get weather, we can put it as a tool for an agent. So what this function is doing here is pretty simple. It's returning a string saying it's always sunny in the city provided in the user prompt, right? So it will grab the city name from the user prompt and generate this string. Okay, so let's run it here, and we can copy this one again, put it here, and since it has a tool now, we can name it tool agent. Okay, and this time we do have a tool which is get_weather. Let's copy it and put it here. So, I mean, tool means it can perform some action, right? That's the main thing. And in this particular case, the action is pretty simple. It will simply return a string, right? That's the action it's doing. In real life, of course, the tools can do a lot more complicated things, but for this particular example, I think it should be good enough, right? So we have our function defined, and we are providing this function as a tool for this tool_agent. And then we can run it. For running it, we can copy the code from here. Let's run it first. And we are providing the same prompt. However, as we discussed, this time it has a tool, get weather tool. So let's see what the response is this time. Oh, okay. Sorry, we got the same response. I think it's because I made a mistake. I forgot to rename the agent name, which is tool_agent. And now let's run it. Okay, now we can see we got this one. Tool message is this, is okay here. And this is the AI message, right? It's always sunny in SF, and it's coming from the tool get weather, right? So in our first chat agent, we did not provide any tool, so it was just like regular chatting thing. We send request and it responded. It was an LLM response. However, in the second one, the tool agent, it did use the tool we provided. So that's the walkthrough of this code here. Pretty simple, but it just shows you how we can create an agent using LangChain. I hope you learned something from this session and you understand all the core concepts that we wanted to cover. Just a quick recap here. At the top of this notebook, we imported the API key and the LangChain and LangChain Google Gen AI packages. And then from that, we imported agents module. And from that, we imported the create agent function. We created a chat agent without any tool, and we ran it. And then we created another agent called tool_agent. And this time we provided it a tool called get weather. and we ran it and got a response from the agent, and this time it did make use of the tool provided. So that's it for this session. If you have any question, feel free to comment on the video. I'll see you in the next session. Thank you.